So, this is the first episode in season 5, and this episode is about why economic theory stopped explaining the real world, and why AI and platform capitalism finished the job. So, we're told that AI will boost productivity, and we all believe in that. We're told that platforms create innovation. Uh, Okay. But in fact, most researchers, innovators, and proposal writers are losing the game. Not because they're bad, not because they don't know what they're doing, but because they're using the wrong economic map, the wrong economic rules. Because it's a map that no longer matches reality. And that's exactly why I published that book, Transition Science in the Economy, not to explain AI, but to explain what breaks when AI meets platform capitalism. And more importantly, who wins, who loses, and why. So, in this episode, I'm going to give you the full picture, start to finish. No jargon, no hype. You'll see why classic economic intuition fails with AI, and how innovation logic quietly changed, and why funding decisions now work differently. First, I'll explain the new economic logic behind AI and platforms, and then I'll show you real funding patterns, real wins, real failures also. And finally, I'll give you two concrete actions you can apply immediately in research designing, in proposal writing, and in innovation strategy. So, if you care about winning funding, I'm sure you do. If you care about saving time, avoiding dead end projects, and actually understanding what's going on, what's happening, this episode is for you. So let's start with the core question. What exactly changes in the economy when AI meets platform capitalism? This episode of InnovEU, the EU Project Chronicles, is brought to you by my new book, Transition Science in the Economy. In it, I use data from more than 180 countries and 150,000 observations, data points, to show how five global shifts, five global transitions, the digital, the green, the new globalization, the transition to a war economy, and the housing crisis transition, how these five transitions are collapsing the middle class and rewriting prosperity and power. So if you want a clear map of today's economy and economic chaos, search for Transition Science in the Economy on Amazon and get your copy. Let's now slow down and actually do the thinking. What I want to explain in this section is why AI and platform capitalism are not just new fads. They're a structural break in how research, innovation, and research funding work. Uh, if you understand this properly, you stop writing weak proposals, you stop betting on the wrong funding logic, and you massively increase your odds of getting funded. Thing is, classic economics assumes three things. First, that markets coordinate information through prices. Second, that firms innovate internally. And third, that competition drives efficiency and progress. AI-driven platform capitalism breaks all three of those. Platforms like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, OpenAI, Meta, they're not markets, they're infrastructure owners. And they don't just participate in economic activity, they actually shape who can participate, how, and under what conditions. So prices are no longer the main coordination mechanism. Data, compute, access, and APIs are. So this matters for research because funding bodies are reacting to this shift. They are no longer funding isolated excellence, they're funding positioning inside ecosystems. AI collapses the cost of cognition, but not the cost of infrastructure. AI does something very specific economically. It reduces the marginal cost of cognition. Writing, coding, modeling, reviewing, simulating. However, it does not reduce the cost of infrastructure. Compute data centers, cloud access, GPUs, all those costs are rising. Compliance, security, energy, mostly energy. So we get a paradox. Knowledge becomes cheaper, but access becomes scarcer. And this creates winner takes most dynamics or winner takes all. And funding agencies, they know this. That's why calls increasingly emphasize sorry, they emphasize shared infrastructures, federated platforms, European digital sovereignty, for example, interoperability, open but controlled access. So if your proposal ignores this logic, it looks naive. It looks like you don't know in what world you're working. Um, so innovation shifts from invention to orchestration. That's a change, a major change. In the old model, innovation meant inventing something new, maybe made up of things everybody knew, but something new. In platform capitalism, innovation means orchestrating already existing capabilities, data, most models, users, partners, standards. And AI accelerates this shift. Most breakthroughs today are not single inventions, they are combinations. So research funding has followed this trend. That's why consortia are more important, interdisciplinary is mandatory, exploitation plans matter more than publications. So exploitation plans for the future matter more than publications in the past. You are no longer funded because you are brilliant. You are funded because your work plugs into a system that's already there and scales, probably a platform. This is a brutal change. This is also a huge opportunity if you understand it. Research funding becomes risk management in a way. That's another point, and not curiosity funding. So let's be clear about this. Public research funding today is not about curiosity. It's about strategic autonomy, resilience, competitiveness, geopolitical positioning. All AI sits in the center of all four. And funding agencies are asking where does Europe lose control if this research fails? In the case of European funding agencies, or where does Europe gain leverage if it succeeds? So that's why evaluation criteria, if you look at it now, they now prioritize scalability, deployment pathways, policy relevance, alignment with industrial ecosystems. So if your proposal sounds like a journal article, hmm, I'm not confident about it. But if your proposal sounds like a controlled experimentation inside the strategic system, it has much better chances. Another point is that another point I want to make is that there's a hidden mistake most researchers make in this point nowadays. And this is what I see all the time. Researchers assume that AI is a method, and funding bodies actually treat AI as an infrastructure. And there's a fundamental difference here. That mismatch actually kills proposals. Because if you present AI as a tool you will use, a technique you will apply, or a model you will test, you miss the point. What evaluators want to see is how AI reshapes workflows, how it changes incentives, how it alters power structures, how it affects scale and control. And this is a political economy, not computer science. So is exactly where economists, social scientists, and systems thinkers have an advantage. So what does this mean for you concretely? Let me translate this into plain language. You win if you frame research as a part of an ecosystem. You win if you show awareness of platform dynamics. You win if you link AI to governance, risk, deployment. You win if you reduce uncertainty for evaluators. You lose if you treat AI as neutral. It's not at all neutral. You lose if you ignore scale effects or if you focus only in publications or if you avoid talking about power and control. It's very much about power and control. So don't misunderstand me. This is not ideology. This is how the system now works. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So I'll give you just a couple of case studies that actually play out in research funding. One, it's the first is a failure. A few years ago, I reviewed a proposal. Technically, it was excellent. I'm not sure if it's a few years or a few months. It was strong methodologically. It had a strong methodology. It had some great publications from the team, top tier publications. And the project was about applying AI to optimize a complex system. Smart models, they had solid data sets, clear scientific contribution. So excellence, the excellence section was fantastic. It actually failed badly. Why? Because the proposal treated AI as a method, not an infrastructure dependency. They didn't discuss would control the data pipeline, where the models would run, what happens after the project ends, and how results would scale beyond the consortium. So it failed not because it was bad science, but because it was high risk and little limited deployment credibility. So another case study I brought to you, a project that was not so original but got funded. A little bit the opposite. So it was a less intellectually exciting proposal. Nothing radically new in the algorithms, but it was framed in a completely different way. The project positioned itself as a building block inside an existing digital ecosystem. It was interoperable with existing platforms and aligned with the industrial deployment pathways. They showed clearly where they would fit, where that piece they were building would fit in the Lego construction. They addressed cloud dependency, compute costs, data governance, even long-term hosting. So the innovation was orchestration, not really invention. And it got funded because it reduced uncertainty for evaluators. So there's a pattern here. Across all these cases and across all these stories, there's a pattern. The same rule appears. Funding bodies are not buddies. Bodies are not asking if the research is interesting. They're asking, does it reduce strategic uncertainty in this AI platform world? And you have to have an answer for that in your proposal. If you do, everything else becomes easier and safer for the evaluators. So I'll leave you with two actions. My challenge for you is to take these two actions this week. Because we've been talking about logic and examples. Now, I want to give you two very specific actions, not the framework, not the methodology, not something you do someday. Two tasks, sorry, you can do this week. One, rewrite your project in platform language. This is the first task. Take your current project idea or your last rejected proposal and rewrite one single paragraph. I hope you have some rejected proposal. I do a lot. And take one, choose the most important paragraph in the excellence section and rewrite it in this platform language. Not the whole proposal, just one paragraph. And that paragraph needs to answer this question. Where does the project sit in this wider AI and platform ecosystem? Force yourself to name the infrastructure it depends on, the data flows it uses or creates, who could reuse or extend the results, and what survives after the funding ends. So if your paragraph talks about excellence, novelty, contribution to knowledge. Okay, that's nice, but it's not enough. It can be very challenging, very interesting, but it's not enough. You're doing it wrong. This is not a scientific abstract. It's an economic positioning statement. So this works because evaluators decide risk and quality, not just quality, risk as well. So rewrite this paragraph this way. That's what task one. Task two, um, a little bit uncomfortable. Look at your proposal, identify one illusion you are implicitly relying on. Like common ones are AI is neutral, or someone else will integrate, or results will naturally scale, magically scale, or publication equals impact. Now do something radical to that. Kill that illusion in the text, delete it, and write one sentence that says in plain language why this is a risk, how you control it, and who is responsible. This will this task will change completely the evaluation of the project. So I hope you enjoyed the first episode of season five. Actually, I hope you enjoyed it enough to justify making the physical task of clicking, grabbing the mouse and clicking on subscribe, on share, on like, so that other people can see the podcast. And take a look at the website of the podcast, and also take a look at my new book, Transition Science in the Economy. See you next week. Bye.